I'm Jonny Lazarus with the President and Commissioner of the USHL, Glenn Hefferan. We're going to get to know the Commissioner just a little bit better. I mean, you're the busiest man in hockey right now. You got the USHL Combine, the Clark Cup Final, the draft. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
What do you do to unwind and get your mind off of hockey?
I mean, I have some hobbies that I do at home and try to unwind a little bit, just to take the edge off. But it's fine. I find time for that.
Can you give us detail of what those hobbies might be?
I play piano. I try to play just about every day.
What's your go-to song? Is it Making My Way Downtown?
No, it's usually going to be something like from Billy Joel or Elton John, James Taylor, that kind of stuff.
It's like my mom's three favorites.
Oh, your mom. That's great. I rate there with your mom. Exactly. That's awesome.
You have a demo.
I do have a demo. So I write a little bit, so it's pretty good.
So speaking of mental wellness, that's a big part of the Declaration of Excellence, which you actually recently came to an agreement with USA Hockey and the NHL. Can you go into more of what that declaration stands for and what it means to you? Sure.
So a lot of this is just more of an amplification of what we've been doing, but now putting a little bit more teeth into it and some guardrails to make sure that we offer a consistent product for all of our players. And in areas of mental wellness, off-ice training, skill development, these are all really important things. We work with companies like Hefferan. Every single player in the league has access to that application that's on their phone. They go through a demo process with Hefferan at the beginning of the season. But these are all important things. These players are under a lot of pressure. There's a lot at stake for them. We are the most successful league in terms of Division I college placement and NHL drafts more than any other league in the world. So I think players understand that and know that. So we're trying to be the very best we can be, and that is in service to our players.
Have the players spoke out and talked about how important it is to them, or when did it becomes so important for the league, USA Hockey, and the NHL to really, step in and put a primary focus on the mental?
Well, the league has had a good relationship with USA Hockey and the NHL since its inception at Tier 1, which was 25 years ago. And I think recognizing a lot of the advancements that have been made in sports psychology, a lot of these things are now coming together at our level, where they're doing these things in the NHL and obviously all of the other major league sports. They're very relatable at this age level. If you can start putting that foundational work in now, like there's some of the differences between players that make it and don't, they're very subtle. And so if just that little extra edge in mental preparedness and mental health makes the difference, it's worth doing.
So two words that have become very big over the years are training and recovery.
Yes.
A lot of parents, I think, don't necessarily know about that and maybe want their kids to be nonstop hockey all year long, but how important are those two words for these young athletes?
Well, I'd like to think our model focuses in on probably the best development model that I can see. It's part of the reason why college hockey is leading the way with more drafted NHL players. It's why we get more drafted NHL players. We play 92% of our games on Friday and Saturday, and so Sunday's a recovery day, Monday through Thursday is a training period, and so we just keep repeating that process all throughout the season. And so I think for us to be able to deliver that is an optimal condition for elite athletes to be able to have that kind of cadence to their daily schedule. So they spend their full day at the rink. They're here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Some teams have their own little slight differences in how they run their routine, but it's a full day at the arena. Whether it's in video session, off-ice training, mental health work. So all of these things come together in what we like to call an athlete healthy environment.
Yeah, and it's important too. I remember my time as a player, not being able to optimize free time. You're at the rink for 3 hours and you have your whole day ahead of you and you don't really know what to do. I mean, I spent it go-karting or mini golfing, but it seems like this is more beneficial towards the athletes to help them get to the next level. Maybe that's why I wasn't able to.
Well, listen, you still play Division I, which is still a difficult accomplishment in any given birth year, right? There's only about 450 new Division I athletes every year. So when you think about that, and we've been responsible for about 50% of those, it's quite an accomplishment. So it has changed. What is interesting, the beginning of the year, we bring our strength and conditioning coaches together for a symposium. We'll get some folks from the NHL and college hockey and the guys from GVN, which train the national program, and they go through best practices. And what's interesting is that these leaders in strength and conditioning are pointing out stuff. They said, we didn't know this stuff 2 years ago. That is how fast strength and conditioning changes, So I think being able to stay on top of that and being able to have best practices is important. And I think our schedule, the way our schedule runs, it allows for players to actually do these things. They're not playing on Tuesday, bus ride to another city, not getting the full practice, not getting to their dry land routines. So these kinds of things really do matter for player development.
Something you and I actually spoke about with the officials is that they don't get practice.
No.
They're only performing games, that's it. It's not like they have the Monday through Thursday practice schedule.
They don't.
And they can work on things. So I'm assuming he helps them with that mentally as well, because that's a mental battle.
It is a mental battle, and I think, we tell them every time you go into a building, the coach might have been hard on you the last time, but you have to hit that reset button every single game. And that's we're human beings. It's not always easy for them to be able to do that, but they work at it. And it is, the point about practice is, they can work out, and they did some they skated yesterday morning, just to loosen up the legs and stay fresh. And some of these guys will work other levels, but I think that point about that they don't get to practice. Yeah. It's all about rule knowledge, communication skills, and then honing your craft as you go, which is why we try to get a lot of supervision at these games.
So getting into expansion a little bit, you were recently quoted in an article about possibly expanding to Middletown, Ohio. What are the plans, not only just there, but for expansion over the next 3 to 5 years for the league?
Well, we've been asked by the National Hockey League and USA Hockey that we need to consider expanding. The league has been at 16 teams, I think, since 2010. Hockey continues to grow in the United States, and I think we have our own internal goal of wanting to hit 100 NHL draft picks in a year. And so in order to do that, we need more opportunity for players. And so there's about 12 opportunities right now that are either close to our existing footprint or within the existing footprint now. They all have varying degrees in terms of how we research and do our due diligence on them. And we still have to go through a process, including with Middletown. But Middletown is an exciting project. It's a $200 million facility that's going up, and it brings all the attributes that we would need. And the community itself is a perfect USHL city. So we've entered into some discussions. It's not formalized yet in terms of an actual agreement, nor has it been presented to our board. But that's a process that will continue, and as we continue to build on that due diligence.
How does the vetting process go for expansion?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of issues that you have to take into consideration. It's the venue. Does the venue provide all of the attributes that a team will need? A space for off ice, for offices, for strength and conditioning room. All of those things, dry changing area, all the attributes that top athletes are looking for. So that's part of it. And then it's the ownership group. How does it fit into our footprint? Does the ownership group pass, our background checks and our financial requirements? This is an expensive proposition. And so, but it's interesting, since all of this stuff, especially since the Declaration of Excellence came out, there's been an enormous amount of interest, of people interested in either purchasing an existing team or, looking for an expansion market.
Let's talk about the NHL draft. Just in this final alone, there are multiple players on both teams whose names might go off the board in Los Angeles next month. There's been over 250 players from the USHL, or at least that have connections to the league, get drafted over the last 5 years. What can you credit the success from players going from the USHL into the NHL? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, our development model. That really matters. That is, it gives the player the ability to train, and that practice to game ratio matters. Some of our teams, some of your games are going to have some long bus trips, but there's a good concentration of our teams. We play a conferenced schedule, and that allows for players to practice, recover, and then compete. And so that format, repeated over and over again, I think is what has helped us to not only support Division I college hockey, but to get the kind of draft numbers. I think our numbers the last 5 years directly out of the league was 193, and then if you count the players that were 1 year out that were in college when they were drafted, that pushes us close to that 250. We want that number to continue to grow, and we're excited about it. And I think, I think the future remains really bright for the league.
Let's get into the offseason goals, because it's been a busy regular season for the USHL. What are you looking for once this Clark Cup final is concluded? What is the Let's say long-term agenda for the offseason.
Well, the first few days will be rest. For sure. I have
beach trips?
I have a definitive plan to an undisclosed location for a few days. Yeah, there'll probably be a piano there for sure. I think obviously we're trying to get some of the expansion issues squared away, working through some other details with the National Hockey League. We're trying to build a stronger relationship with our partners at the North American Hockey League. Some of our teams either have close relationships or have direct ownership involvement with North American League teams, and we want to continue to improve that. And we're working on a couple of really big things in the youth Tier 1 AAA space that I think will be monumentally important. We want to take some of the best practices that we're doing here. Some of the stuff that I see where these players are, being asked to play in 4 and 5 game weekends. I know what our teams look like when we play 3 and 3. That Sunday game is not necessarily a pretty game. Guys are pretty tired. But understand the schedule, we try to manage that and have as few of them as possible. But think about a youth player that gets asked to play 4 to 5 games in 55 hours. They get on a plane on a Thursday night, go to the city. It's a lot. And so we have to try to help change that culture, as we have found ways to develop and train players here and have perfected a lot of it. We're not done. We're always going to be a work in progress. But I think for the Tier 1 youth side of it, we have a lot of those lessons that we can deliver back to them, and we want to build a closer relationship. When you see when you watch our USHL draft, we made it a point to make sure we were recognizing the youth club that these young players were coming from in the draft. We want better relationships with all of those people in our ecosystem, from college all the way down to the 14U level. We are trying to build really strong relationships, and I think that's going to be a summertime project for us. Anything for you personally that you're looking forward to in the off season, outside of the trip that you mentioned? We have some staff. We have some staffing needs and want to get to those. From a business development side, I think that's an area that we want to try to focus on and perfect our business side of operations. We have a tremendous staff in the USHL. They work hard. They're at it 7 days a week. Probably want to, make sure that they get some rest and downtime, and they literally work often 7 days a week. And so we want to try to, make sure that they're getting proper downtime as well, and see what staffing needs we may want to address in the off season. And we have our traditional board meeting, and it starts right back up again. We've got things that we have to prep for, our camp. We have our player development camp that accommodates younger players, and so we'll have that in Green Bay. So there's a lot of projects going on, and then we jump right into preparing for Fall Classic. There's really no off season. This is a 12-month operation, so there's always something that has to get done. So we have three significant events that we do as well. From the Fall Classic, the American Cup, and the Frosty Cup, which we do in Texas. So there's always work to be done.